once again, I'm Isaac Ben Ezra, host and co-producer of Conversations. This begins a series, tonight begins a series with the candidates for school committee in the April 3rd primary in Amherst. Those candidates include members of the Board of Trustees at the library, as well as school committee members. So that what we're planning on doing is we're going to have all the candidates separately to do a conversation. We'll try to get into what motivates people to run. It doesn't pay anything, but it's a tremendous responsibility. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that we give people the support they need and elect people who we feel can do the job. With me is Tammy Ely. Tammy Ely, maybe a future member of the Board of Trustees of the library. Welcome. It's so good to have you.
Thank you, Isaac, for inviting me to have a conversation.
Why don't you open up and start out by, you gave me a few words about where you're coming from. I'd rather they heard it from you.
Okay, I am a librarian. I've worked in libraries for about 40 years. I was the director of library services at Springfield Technical Community College for 30 years. And I've obviously have dedicated my life to libraries. And during my career, I worked with a lot of cooperative groups, worked with librarians from the Jones Library. And I felt now that I'm retired that I'd like to give back and work on behalf of strengthening the Jones Library. And I've lived in Amherst 30 years. I've used the Jones Library for that period. I used the Jones Library even when I didn't live in Amherst, as many people do. So I've been attending trustee meetings this year to familiarize myself with some of the issues. And having attended the meetings, I decided about Christmas time that I would throw my hat into the ring, so to speak, and run for a seat on the Board of Trustees.
And in terms of your educational background, you have a wonderful background in the library systems as well, not only as a professional but as a volunteer. And I think people will be interested in knowing about that. I remember reading that you grew up in Boston. You attended a Quaker boarding high school in Pennsylvania, went on for a BA at Goucher College
in Maryland.
Simmons College for an MS in library science, and then University of Massachusetts, an MA in history. So you've been connected with education throughout from the very beginning almost.
Well, I am. My father taught at MIT, so I grew up in academic environments. And I've always loved academic institutions. I thought about doing other kinds of work, but decided to go to library school and worked in the Boston area for 4 or 5 years. And then my husband and I relocated to Western Massachusetts. And at that time, I was looking for a different kind of library. I'd worked in university libraries, and I was really attracted to the community colleges because I felt that it was an environment with students who did not grow up with some of the advantages that I had, and I felt that I could make a difference. And I really loved the community colleges. As I told you earlier, I told the woman who hired me I'd be there 2 years, and I stayed 36. And I found it to be a fascinating place to work. And during the time I was working was when libraries began to merge into cooperative groups and networks. So I had an opportunity to work with a broad spectrum of different types of libraries, hospital libraries, school libraries, public libraries. And I found it fascinating. And I really enjoyed community colleges with students of all different backgrounds, a lot of ESL students who came to go through the college's ESL program, much the way we have a lot of residents of Amherst using the ESL center in the Jones Library. And then they would go on and get a 2-year degree, and many went on for 4-year degrees. We had a lot of students who went on to graduate work. So it was a really interesting place to work.
And community colleges are a vital in today, not only in today's economy, it's a must for today's economy, but I can say in the 60s and early 70s when my kids were getting ready for college, they all did a stint at the Bucks County Community College for at least 1 year. And in those days, it was a lot less money than it is today, but it was the entryway for going on to NYU, UP, and Binghamton, New York. And today I think there's even a greater need than there has been in the last 20 years. And so it sounds to me like Jones has got a very big responsibility with the changing economic climate. You want to talk about that?
Well, all of us who worked in libraries know that when the economy is down, business booms. We saw this with the state funding of the community college. When, you know, the economy was strong, we had adequate, maybe even sufficient funding, but when the economy soured and tax returns were decreased, we didn't have enough money, and yet we had more people in the library. And I believe that Jones is seeing that too. People have canceled internet, they've canceled Netflix subscriptions, they come to the library to borrow DVDs, to use the computers. They're not buying as many books, so they're going to borrow more books. And a lot of people are coming into libraries wanting help with resumes, wanting help with filling out forms online. So I think you do see when the economy is poor that you have many more people coming to use the library. And it puts a strain on institutions which are not adequately funded for precisely the same reason. I mean, both the Jones and the two branches have had reduced hours for several years now. And yet there are more people coming in to use all of those three libraries.
And there is an immigrant community that's making use of the library. Aren't there some language programs going on at the library?
I believe there are. I mean, I'm new to studying the Jones and learning more about it. There is an immigrant community. There are ESL programs helping them and mentors for different languages. Much the same way at the college, a lot of us served as mentors to ESL students to help them. We would spend time with them. They could practice their English. And I believe that the ESL Center offers that.
Yeah. And I think you put your finger on another important problem. And more and more you're seeing middle-aged folks using the library, and older, because for the very reasons you outlined, getting ready for new job searches, or just having a place to go at 9 o'clock in the morning and not be home after when you're used to going to work. That's a tremendous issue, and I think that you'll have an opportunity before and after, whether you get to be a trustee or not, that there is a great need for paying attention to the changes in our population in terms of the things that they no longer can do individually because of the costs. So how have you experienced this kind of thing in your the position you had before you retired?
Well, community colleges are open enrollment. You have people coming, the 18-year-olds, but there was a large number of people, middle years, who were coming back to be retrained. Some had never gone to college. There's a large contingent of women who came back. And they didn't have the confidence to apply to Smith or Mount Holyoke or UMass. So they would come to a community college and have a good relationship with a faculty member who would mentor them and help them. And they would do well in courses and begin to gain confidence. And then they would transfer. Some would finish with a degree. Many would transfer even without an associate's degree. Some came back for a career. I mean, Springfield Tech Community College has a huge allied health program. So there were surgical techs, dental assistants, dental hygienists, laser optics, a lot of the high-tech fields. So you had a lot of people who, many of whom had college degrees, came back to be retrained in a different field. And so there was such a diversity in the student body. We had one woman who had never gone to college. She was in her 80s. She came back, got a 2-year degree, transferred to Mount Holyoke, and graduated. I think she was 84, 85 when she graduated from Mount Holyoke. So you have the 18-year-olds and you have the retirees coming back.
And that's exactly where I wanted to go, because I was going to say, do you see the same bridge in terms of our kids who are reaching their junior and senior year and starting to think about, well, what's my future going to be like? What are the local opportunities? Are the community colleges a step in the right direction? Do you see that as being an important part of the counseling that takes place at the Jones Library?
Well, I
in
think
addition
that
to
it's
supporting the counselors at the schools.
I think it's important for staff in the Jones to be aware of options for all residents, whether it be, you know, that if a student comes in or somebody who's thinking about going back to school but doesn't really know where to look, that there are a lot of options now that didn't exist years and years ago for students, especially for older students. I mean, things like University Without Walls at UMass, in addition to community colleges. There are high school students at the Amherst Regional High School who are taking courses at Greenfield Community College. And Amherst and Mount Holyoke and Smith colleges have reached out to community colleges, and they're making a big effort of trying to attract them to those schools, because they bring a diversity, which increasingly, you know, freshmen coming into Amherst College and the other selective colleges, there is a more diverse freshman class, but community college students bring a different perspective. And I think that most of the reference librarians in the Jones, I'm sure, are aware of all these different options. If somebody comes in who's not able to go to the Amherst High School counseling office.
You said earlier that you work with, as a volunteer at Jones Library in some capacity.
No, I've not been a volunteer per se. No, I've not been a volunteer per se. I have been coming to the Board of Trustees meetings since the fall to familiarize myself with some of the issues and concerns, and I do know a lot of the librarians, so that I've been aware at CWMAR's meetings, which is the network to which a lot of colleges and public libraries belong, aware of some of their issues. Academic libraries don't have the huge circulation that public libraries have, and the Jones has an amazing circulation, and they're sending out books that people have placed on hold through the CWMAR system, and that's an enormous benefit. Anyone who has a CWMAR's card, a Jones card, can put a hold on a book through the CWMAR's network and pick it up at the Jones Library, even though it comes from Pittsfield, Worcester, Springfield, or a college library in those areas. So the Jones is an incredibly busy place, and I'm very impressed by the level of service they provide.
You've been attending some of the meetings of the
Yes,
trustees.
I have.
Could you give us some idea of how you view the role of a trustee board member?
Well, I have served on a number of boards, some smaller, some larger, some larger than the Jones board. And I understand that there is a role for the trustees and a role for the director whom the trustees oversee. I've been involved in evaluating directors, in hiring them, in helping them with staff problems or personnel issues, budgeting, managing investments. So these are some of the issues which the board has been dealing with. In the tough economic times, with not the return on the investments one would like, there are some concerns about the spending rate for the endowment, and that needs to be addressed. There are some building issues. It's a beautiful building. but I live in an old house, and there's always things happen in older buildings which need attention. And there's a need amongst the staff, which the current director has addressed, of more cross-training so people in one department can help out in another department. With a small staff, that's really necessary, that people can do more than one thing and they don't just stay in their department. These are some of the issues that have been discussed. I'm not privy to the information that is, just within the trustees, but most of what's public I've been able to attend and to learn some of the issues that they're addressing, and it did interest me. I attended the meetings when the new directors were interviewed, and following that, started attending trustee meetings. And I feel that I bring a different perspective than the current trustees, because I know how libraries operate, I know how they cooperate, and I understand that trustees do not run the library. Trustees help the director and establish objectives with the director for the library, work on long-range planning. And so there's lots of important activities for the board members to do, but it's the director and the staff who bring the specific issues of library operations or concerns about library services to the board. If board input and board policy and a vote of confidence is needed.
So you, based on your experience, you know the value of oversight but not micromanagement.
Right. I'm not a micromanager. I was not a micromanager. I hired really good people and I let them do their jobs.
And would you say that's probably the most important job a
Yes,
trustee member
yes.
can have?
Yes, I think you hire people and you have confidence in them, and if they have concerns, they will come to you. But I would not, as a trustee, be involved in day-to-day operations or question decisions made by the staff with the director. Because I think it's the librarians on the front lines, working with the public, who know what needs to be done.
How do you encourage that and get it across to the leadership at the board level?
Well, I think you work with board members. People bring different ideas and different experiences and a different interpretation of the role of trustees. And I think it's important. The Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, which is the state agency, publishes a trustee's handbook, which very clearly outlines and runs workshops for new trustees. And there's a clear sheet of what are the responsibilities of the trustees and the responsibility of the director and the staff. And in the experiences I've had being on boards and chairing boards, that while you may engage in conversation and learn what's happening, it's really the responsibility of the main director to bring staff concerns and issues or ideas for changes that the staff has suggested that come up to the director, and the director brings them to the board. But I don't feel that the board should be imposing changes on the staff. That's something that's responsibility of the director. The board has really important fiduciary responsibilities, making sure that personnel policies, the evaluation process is clear and transparent, and that other work, fundraising is a big issue. The board needs to work with the Friends, Friends have done a fantastic job raising money to supplement the budget. There's a lot of people who care deeply about the Jones Library, and I think we need to work with all parties to bring that energy and enthusiasm to bear to maintain the Jones and to strengthen it in the community.
Tammy, you bring a lot to any board that would be giving you the opportunity to participate.
Oh, thank you.
And I was married to a librarian for 55 years, so I am very partial to librarians.
Well,
I want to thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Isaac.
It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Tammy Ely. We got the name right.
You do.
Okay. And the primary for trustees will be held on Tuesday, April the 3rd, 2012. Make a note of that date. There are going to be at least 5 candidates, 3 for 3-year positions, 2 at least for the 1-year position. We've invited the 3-year positions. I'm running out of time before the primary. If I can squeeze in the 1 year, I will. If I can't, they're invited to come in and do a 5-minute hello, this is who I am, without any strings attached, so that everybody has access to ACTV. So that, once again, April 3rd is the primary date. You have an opportunity to elect new trustees or old trustees, whatever you care to do, as well as school committee members. And in a few minutes, I'll be interviewing one of the school committee candidates, so stay tuned. And by the way, let me remind you that school committee is an issue that's been on the front pages for a long, long time. And this is an opportunity now to move forward. So in behalf of the students who participate in our volunteer work-study programs, and behalf of ACTV staff, I want to thank you for joining in. Tune in next week, and over the next few weeks we'll have spots dedicated just to bring the various candidates together separately based on their interviews. In other words, there'll be an interview exclusive, and then when it gets near to the primary, we'll put them all up in the programming so that people will have a chance. And by the way, if you go to actvamherst.com or amherstmedia.org, you can on demand get the candidates at any time. So if you can't get them in during the time when we program them, you can get them at your convenience. So once again, stay tuned, stay well, and we'll see you next week.